Just in case you did not have enough of an analysis as to why it was so offensive that Lizzo twerked while holding an old flute.
A crystal flute, don't forget that.
An old glass flute.
Crystal.
Just in case you didn't fully understand
Crystal.
why this was so offensive to the gods of
Music, sound,
crystal flutes.
glass in general.
And the
Matt
ghosts of
Walsh.
all of our founding fathers.
Matt Walsh followed up on the Daily Wire's report about black people, if they can find one, I think is what they call the entire network. Matt Walsh is, here he is. He is also furious about Lizzo playing James Madison's flute. That is not a euphemism. Literally, it was the flute. All right, let's go.
Meanwhile, they'll tell you to their face what they're actually doing. So here are some a couple other tweets I didn't mention.
All right,
This
pause
one
it.
is
We should
from
just say, I did just say, you don't even have to take him down. Should just say he's reading tweets in favor of people who I guess enjoyed seeing Lizzo play the flute.
The revolutionaries.
Yep, here we go. It's like that field day.
Meanwhile, they'll tell you to their face what they're actually doing. So here are some a couple other tweets I didn't mention. This one is from Tiffany C. Lai. She's a law scholar. She says, Lizzo, a black female superstar, collaborating with Carla Hayden, the first African-American and first woman librarian of Congress, to use a flute from James Madison, the founding father who originated the Three-Fifth Compromise, and also the Library of Congress itself. What symbolism? Then she continues, James Madison was America's fourth president. He helped shape the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. He also was a slave owner, and he created the Three-Fifths Compromise that each enslaved person would count as three-fifths of a person for state electoral vote totals, a complicated legacy. Now, she's mangling the history with James Madison and the Three-Fifths Compromise. That's not really the point. The point is that what she is saying, and she's not the only one, Elie Mystal, who's
all right, pause it for 1 second. I just want you to know what happened right there. And this, I think, like everybody who does these shows is associated with it. When he didn't read the second tweet, when he signed up for this and had it to promote it, because by saying it's complicated and introducing nuance, this law professor made it impossible for him to parody. And it is, I mean, it is, first off, I will also say this. There is nothing Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro or any of these other people, I'm sure Tucker Carlson will be railing on this tonight, or if last night, if he hadn't already, have ever done to get people, your average person's interest in history more than what Lizzo did by playing that flute. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. But continue.
The history with James Madison and the Three-Fifths Compromise, that's not really the point. The point is that what she is saying, and she's not the only one, Elie Mystal, who's Mistal, however you pronounce his name, you see him on CNN a lot. He says this, if any of James Madison's descendants is offended by Lizzo, if they want to try out the 200-year-old iron collar white folks would affix to our ancestors who tried to escape James Madison's clutches, I'm sure somebody at the National Museum of African American History could hook you up. And a lot of takes just like this. What are they saying? I mean, they're clearly saying that the way they see it, part of the point of this flute stunt was not only demoralization, as we talked about, but also very specifically, it's an act of racial retribution. It's sort of like getting back at James Madison for his position on slavery. And we're going to do that by taking a priceless artifact that belonged to him and just making a mockery of it. But sure, I mean, if you want to be above it all and say, who cares, whatever, it doesn't matter, you can go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
But you are ultimately giving the left exactly what it wants.
He rubs himself on that banjo behind him right now. I just want everyone to know that. He got a historic instrument right there.
I have to say that I don't totally disagree with Walsh. I do think that the part of the point is that the symbolism is that, yes, we have come at least enough distance. I don't think we've gone far enough at all. I think most people would agree with that. But where the owner of slaves, who I'm sure would, retire to his drawing room and play flute as some of the slaves brought, food around for people who were going to listen, and God knows what other horrors were associated with that flute. And someone put the flute in the wrong place. Have that person whipped.
Yeah.
The idea that a black woman could take that flute, not only play it in a fashion that certainly did that flute justice, perhaps even far greater than its original owner, someone who would never have been allowed to have classical training at the time that flute was owned by that man, is able to do this in a public place where they don't have to hide the fact that they have some type of talent, which surely they would have, possibly paid a price for at that time. I don't know that it's retribution for James Madison. I don't know how that works, how you get retribution for a dead guy by playing his flute. But I do think there is some symbolism as to there is an emancipatory quality to this.
Yeah, there's a TikTok I just sent you, Bradley, from a history teacher that kind of breaks that down if you guys want to see it. But I mean, go on that.
The one thing that, like, where he's wrong, though, is, like, it's not a retribution against James Madison because he was a white guy. It was because he was a slave owner, right? Like, that's where the sort of identity dodge is falls short, because the idea that every white person should identify with James Madison is ludicrous. In James Madison time, the like European folks who were here, unless you were an aristocrat like a plantation owner, you very possibly brought here under certain kind of indentured bondage too. So, like, white people are not synonymous with James Madison, and but I mean that's what the right wants to condition their folks to think. And
it doesn't seem like she even framed it. Sorry, Francesca, just really quick, as like some sort of act that was meant to, like, as we said yesterday, she didn't come on stage and say this is for all the slaves. She's just
she should have.
She could have, right?
Should have.
That's what Bradley said yesterday. But she did it because I think she's a band nerd. She's a classically trained flutist, whatever. And she wanted to play this cool flute. But they have to, they ascribe that to it. And she can't just, like, yes, there is poetry in it. And it's beautiful, as you described, Sam, that now she's able to play this kind of instrument and have classical training, but she wasn't making that the point of her performance. It just was a cool flute.
I a couple of things. One thing is, I just think it's unfair that Ellie Mistal said that, try on an iron collar, because obviously Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh would really be into that. So that's number one. But number two, I also feel like this is where we get distracted, where the right is like, all they want to do is play glass flutes and it's wokeism and and it's not the same thing. I think it is actually really beautiful what she did, but it is it reminds me of some of the performative stuff that Democrats do generally, that, like, we again are missing the forest for the trees or whatever. Like, we're just, we get hung up on these small symbolic things that are cool, representation, inclusion, all that, like, that's amazing and dope, but also let's actually talk about reparations, on the House or Senate floor, like that kind of thing. So I think that is where I start to get, like, the more I watch it, the more I see the backlash. I'm like, ugh, why do we even do this kind of stuff anyway?
But I don't think, this was just a cultural thing. It was a way to actually bring history alive in some fashion. This is the oldest, like, sort of mechanism that historians do, is they try and, bring a piece of history and have it be reinterpreted in a new context that will appeal to young people, because there's no way that, first of all, anybody knew that this flute existed, 6 weeks ago, or I don't know, 6 days ago. And like, it
gave him shine. It gave James Madison some shine. Like, oh, he played the flute.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just amazing. It's just amazing. It really is. And I don't think it's like, if we do this, we don't have to pass, we don't have to do, we don't have to pass some legislation as much as it is like, it's a cultural thing that the Library of Congress should be doing more of this. Smithsonian should be doing this. And it's just, the problem is that when you have black people do it, it is, of course, as far as these guys are concerned, a total affront to white people. They shouldn't be doing that. It would be something else. If she hadn't done that twerking, it would have been something else. They would have found something else.
So they just comment on how what she was wearing if she hadn't moved like that.
Shapiro's been mad at Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion twerking just in general.
Yep.
They didn't even have a flute.
Wet ass pussy. What? Oh,
I would not actually say the word.
You have a medical condition.